What's going on? This is the Brett Snodgrass podcast. Thank you guys for joining me today. If you go over to our channel on YouTube, please subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can on that. We're trying to build up our fan base on YouTube, so make sure you guys go check that out. I got a guest, a great friend of mine, Clint Wetherill. He's out of Indianapolis, Indiana. He's been in the real estate investing for about 20 years now. He owns a couple of companies, Zuluscape and Realty Wealth Advisors. He talks on this show about legacy. So we go a little bit deeper in this episode. We talk about legacy, entering into this season of life after we've had this miraculous, successful career, on what are we going to do to leave behind? What are we going to do to matter? How are our lives going to impact other people? So he digs into that a little bit. He's got a couple of young daughters that he talks about, 3 and 5 years old. He talks about his wife, Tish, and we go a little bit deeper in this episode. So put your seatbelts on, guys. Here we go. Clint Wetherill.
How are you, Brett? Good to be here.
Yeah, man. It's been a while. We were just kind of conversing. I had you on the podcast when me and Jaron were doing the Simple Wholesaling podcast, and that was, I think, episode less than 10. So that was 4 or 5 years ago, man. And it's good to see you again. You're looking good.
To see you. That was a fun time on your podcast then, and it's an honor to be back. I think a lot of you and what you're doing, and your ministry and everything that you stand for. So it was very humbling and cool to see the invite come through to be on your podcast. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I look up to you guys too. You guys have been in the real estate game for been a while. I mean, what is it now? I know it's been
hard to believe. I mean, I guess I started part-time in 2002.
Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, 20 years.
20 years under your belt. Just like that, right? Just snap your fingers. Here we go.
A lot of gray hair
in your 40s.
Later, here we are.
That's awesome, man. Well, if you guys are interested, you can also go check out the podcast with Clint Wetherill, with our Simple Wholesaling podcast, just to learn more about his business. Today, we're going to take a different approach with Clint. We're going to talk about legacy. We're going to talk about kind of this middle-aged, not saying you are middle-aged, Clint, but we're both in that 42, 43 age range, and we're entering into this season that we might think a little bit differently than we did when we were 22, 23, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but first, let's just describe you a little bit. Who is Clint Wetherill?
I'm a small town guy at heart. I grew up in Southern Indiana, a really small town, a one stoplight town that a lot of my friends and family, are still there. I still call it home. Went to, Indiana University in 97. Then shortly after, got into real estate. I'm most proud to be a father and husband. I've got a lovely wife, Natisha, and 2 beautiful daughters, Fallon, who is 5, and Claire Grace, who is 3. And I'm in that season of life where, you're balancing, work and family and faith and, all of those things. But, at the core of it, I'm a pretty boring dude. That, a bit of a redneck from rural Indiana, but
what town did you grow up in?
It's a little town called Rockport. It's 22 miles east of Evansville.
Okay. So it's pretty down there, pretty far. I mean, we grew up in Southern Indiana. My dad was a high school basketball coach, so you enter into that part back in the 80s and 90s. That was a big deal, right? I don't know if it's a big deal anymore, but
I know. I still like going back. My dad was a family attorney, a general practice attorney down there for 40 years before, I lost him in 2018. My mom, is still down there, and, big part of my heart is still in that city. But, live in Fishers, Indiana now. Metro Indy is kind of the area that I work within professionally. But yeah, I wish I could give you some really exciting stuff, but I'm a pretty boring dude.
No, man, it is exciting. I mean, especially you got into real estate 2002, built up a really successful business. I remember in that first episode, you talked about painting houses and just grinding it out and rehabbing your own single family houses. And then obviously 20 years later, Realty Wealth Advisors is a company, also Zuluscape. So you buy properties, you manage properties, rentals, and I know before this podcast, you said you were constantly putting out fires, which sounds like a lot of fun. But
It is. The thing that I'm most proud of here within the walls of our office here is we do have a really great group of people that I get to come and work with every day, and I'm very very honored in that. So if we're having to deal with a lot of unpleasant things that real estate investing and property management brings about, I at least get to do it with some awesome people. So that's
yeah,
very blessed in that regard.
definitely. Well, I look at you, man. You've had a lot of success, right? You guys have a great business. You do a lot of deals per year. You help people build wealth, and they buy your houses. You manage their houses for them, and you help just kind of take that net worth type high net worth individual, and you help them build more wealth. But I really want to kind of take a turn on this show and just kind of like differentiate. You're in the season now. You're 43 years old, two young kids. You're trying to manage everything in this business after 20 years, and it's turned into what it is today. It's a pretty big business, and versus when you first got started. So during this season, I want you to just kind of maybe describe to our audience those, because a lot of our listeners are in that same type of season. They've had a lot of success. They're trying to figure it out, balance this life, and they're holding all these plates and they're constantly just spinning them. So maybe take us into like your life and just the season of your life. Like, how are you feeling? Do you feel a little bit different coming into your 40s than you did into your 30s? What kind of goes through Clint's mind during this season?
Well, first of all, I feel exceptionally different in my 40s than I did in my 30s. Not just my mentality and my overall attitude, but my health as well. But yeah, it's very different. Like even going back into like my 20s, I think work ethic was always at the core of who I am, and that was instilled by my father at a very early age. I always had 3-4 different jobs whenever I was middle school, high school. It always enjoyed working. And in my 20s, whenever I first got into real estate, I was more worried about going broke and having to grow potatoes in my backyard. So like I literally, worked, round the clock, basically. I had a day job for a while where I was a sales rep, and at the end of the day, I'd put my painting clothes on and go paint houses and fix up houses, and then I'd go home and I'd be scouting properties in the MLS. That's when properties were still available, unlike today. But it was easy time in my life to grind it out. I got into my 30s, I carried that in, and then I got married in 2015 to my beautiful wife, and your priorities change a little bit. Still very focused on work, and she was at the time as well whenever we got married. But then we started a family, had our first daughter in 2016, and she decided to step away from her very fruitful career. She was very successful at what she did, and started that family in 2016, and then we added a second daughter in 2018. I guess like the biggest transition, with into my 40s was, you can't be at work all the time. It's you got to step away, and I went from at one point in my career working 100 hours a week. I work 40 hours now, and it looks a lot differently too, because there's constant shuttling of kids to events and all of that. But really, for me, I'm not as concerned about being busy and doing things at work as I am making sure that whenever I go home, my cell phone goes down, and we are watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and Cinderella, and and doing those things. So like my priorities have shifted a great deal towards family, and I'm happy to be in that season of my life. I don't really miss all of the crazy work hours. I feel fortunate that some of the crazy work hours that I used to have maybe afforded me the luxury, especially since I had kids late in life. I've got a 3-year-old in my mid 40s. Able to step away, vacations, be at kids events, those sorts of things. And we try to really instill faith within our family. Me and my wife are both Christians, and take it very seriously. We're active in our church, and we've got our oldest is in kindergarten at a Christian school. So yeah, I guess the biggest thing is like the priorities just really have shifted. I still really enjoy working and just getting things done. I mean, I carry that into projects at home. I always move, but yeah, I love my daughters more than anything in this world, and I love spending time with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we enter into that season of priorities kind of shift. And like you said, I never want to like downplay the success that you've had, because a lot of the stuff that you did years ago offers you the option now to be able to go home and be able to spend time. So never want this to come across as like, hey, um, don't work hard, anything like that. I think we just enter into that different season. I want to speak into guys' hearts on the show that are in that season. And one of the things that I think that men think about uh, during this type of season is this term legacy. And when I say that term, it's basically, does my life matter, and will it count? So I think we enter into this season and we think about that. And so, like for you, Clint, what does the kind of like that even mean to you? Do you ever think about that? And what does that mean?
Well, I think legacy is an important word for anyone that that has a family. So it means a lot. At one point in my life, I would have thought that legacy was just, I shouldn't say just, but more about having my daughters, set up, for the future financially. I don't really feel that way, anymore. I've had a lot of life lessons that have changed, my view on that. But legacy, to me, is, I'm very passionate and serious about, my daughters knowing the Lord. So, we pray, every day, together. We make church a priority. So I do want my daughters to be financially secure. That I guess that would be a section of the legacy, but I think first and foremost, our daughters, having a relationship in Christ is far more important than the financial aspects. I learned a lot. I had a phenomenal relationship with both of my parents, but my dad was always kind of my hero, and I lost him in 2018. And he was a workhorse, as well. And I didn't get to, he didn't get to enjoy the fruits of his labor quite like I would have preferred to have seen. I know he's in a better place now, but the whole financial aspect, it's amazing how that way of thinking, because like I used to, and for me it wasn't like always just about money. I've always, I've said before, the greatest job I ever had was I worked for a landscaping company when I was in high school. And just seeing the satisfaction of the finished product at the end, was always big for me. But money does creep in, to, I think, a hungry entrepreneur's, mind and heart. And it's amazing, like how much I just don't feel like that's important, anymore. I mean, like I said in the beginning, I'm still a small town guy at heart. I drive a 25-year-old vehicle. I wear Levi's jeans and do my shopping at Meyer. So like it does, it doesn't, you could, at the end of the day, you could take every cent away from me, and it really wouldn't change who I am.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
so it took me a while to realize that it doesn't matter as much. And it is important. I mean, I'm very thankful that I'm able to send my kids to private Christian school and
Hmm.
things like that. But I'm more happy to do that with my money than roll up to work in a Bentley, or something silly, like that. So I'm pretty I feel like I'm pretty humble when it comes to the financial portion of it, that it's just really shifted throughout
Yeah.
my 20s, 30s, and 40s, where,
Yeah.
like I said, at the end of the day, like, you could take everything away from me right now, and I don't feel like that changes that much.
Yeah. It's funny because you talk about just kind of the entrepreneurship and you looked at your landscaping and just that finished product brought a lot of great deal of satisfaction. I think that's very biblical too, because God, right? He created everything and he looked at it and said, wow, this is really good. He looked at all that he created. So I think that's biblical. And you talked about your daughters, just like one of your things is you really want them to have a relationship with the Lord. Um, that's always just been this is always like, if I could pinpoint anything that I feel more failure on, it's like inside of my home and trying to lead them. It's like I can go out into the workforce, do a podcast with you, lead this company and these employees, but when it comes to my family, I honestly feel like a failure most of the time. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm not equipped and I'm terrible at this. So like, do you have any advice just to that entrepreneur, business owner dad out there that like he wants, like, do you do anything in your home? You talk about praying with your kids, but just to get that environment in their home to um, just to equip them for the world, to equip them to have that relationship with God. I don't know. Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, it's amazing. um, if you start, what I've seen is, if you start your kids on that path, that how much I actually learn, from them. I mean, I've
Mhm.
learned more from my oldest daughter in the last couple months than probably I've learned in my entire career of real estate. Um, it's
Especially when they go to the Christian schools, they bring home and they're talking these Bible verses and
it's amazing. I mean,
it's
I mean, it makes me feel, um, like I'm not doing my job, as a father and as the leader of our household, because I mean, she knows the Bible almost as good as I do.
yeah.
So I mean, it is hard, especially when you work all day and you come home and you're a little tired, and there, and we're on a spiritual path also, that we try to do our best to
Yeah.
to always improve that. But it's I think a lot of times as adults, we have so many things going on, and our judgment and thoughts are clouded by so many outside events and things that are going on around us, that children sometimes don't have all of that garbage that we have to deal with,
Mm.
that they, for example, my daughter came home from school a couple months ago and said, I really, mom, dad, I really want to do something for the homeless.
Mm.
And I thought, man, that's really cool. Like, well, what do you think? And she's like, well, I was, wanted to get some blankets for the homeless. It was still cold, which is still cold now, but I'm outside, and we, because of that, we started on Amazon, this thing called Warm Up with the Wetherills,
Mm.
and we've collected over 300 blankets for
Wow.
the homeless, and we've went to several different homeless shelters. And looking back on that, and try not to cry on the show here, and but like I'm like, wow, like, my 5-year-old daughter, what a small act of coming home and saying she wants to do something for the homeless, and what it led to. We went to one homeless shelter a couple of weeks ago, and the news was there,
Mm.
and we got to talk to the leader of that shelter, and she said, yeah, we've met our blanket quota for the year off of
Mm.
the blankets that you provide. And I'm like, man, my 5-year-old can do all of this why am I not doing more?
Yeah.
So a
Wow.
lot of it is, there's the old cliche, you have to get out of your own way. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
probably one of my biggest struggles is I'm guilty of the kids go to bed, I get back on the computer and I'm turning
Mm.
out emails and all that. There's just sometimes that we always have to check our priorities and make sure they're in the right way. And, little things can really grow God's kingdom. And I learned
Mm.
that from my 5-year-old here recently.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've really tried to do, because I get in my own head too, and I'm always just in my head. And it's hard to be present when you're shifting through all the crap that's entering into your mind.
Mhm.
But with kids, it's just like they're always in the moment, they're always in the present, whatever they're doing. And it's just a great reminder. They can teach us so much just about being in that present, where like it doesn't ever help when you're sifting through the crap in your head. It's just like there's
Mhm.
nothing good that's ever going to come out of that. So let's just talk about wealth again. So one of the things that you do, you've built wealth, you help people build wealth. So obviously it is important. You talked about maybe during this season, it's not as important as what it was what you thought, but maybe it's easier to say, you know what, I've built wealth. If you were poor or broke, I don't know, you might say something different with that. But so talk about that. I mean, what's the message that you also give to some of your clients about building wealth, especially when it comes to legacy and leaving that behind? You want your daughters and your family to be financially secure. So it's not as important, but it is something. It is very important just to kind of have that freedom, have that option. So talk to us about this a little bit, about this wealth and kind of what you teach.
Well, when it comes to financial security and wealth, I'm a firm believer in it being a marathon and not a sprint. Um, so I really try to teach because I mean it happened within my own investing career. Just seeing what conservative, smart decisions could do over a 10-year period.
Mm,
So I try to bring people down to earth a lot because on social media today, it's with TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, you name it, Instagram, it's all this guru type way of thinking, like people pulling up in flashy cars and boats and huge houses. And quite frankly, if that's what you're looking for, I'm probably not the guy or the company that you need to come to. That's
mhm.
not who we are. In fact, I could sit here and talk about how much I hate that crap. um, but we believe in long term, investing. So when people come to us, we try to build a portfolio of rentals, um, rental investments. We help with some development and some of those things also. But the core of our business has always been single family, investing. And if someone is wanting to buy and sell, homes, often and flip properties and all that, probably not the right fit for people. But we believe in holding a portfolio of investments that over time will really show you the returns. We're not looking for that quick buck. We're more the set it and forget it, mentality. Our typical customer is someone middle age or older that is looking to even create a legacy for their family, looking for a secure place to park their money, which we are lucky to be in the Midwest where we don't see the swings in real estate prices. But we're the set it and forget it company where we build this and then we look to um, collect rent, have the properties pay for themselves. And like I said, it's amazing what smart decisions, if you start making smart decisions today, what that leads to in just a short time. We talked about it before we started the show. I can't believe how fast 20 years has went by me being in this business.
Mhm.
And it goes fast. You make these smart decisions, and then next thing you know, you're 20 years later, and you're a multimillionaire because of the decisions that you made 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, in some cases even 5 years ago. I think of the portfolios that we built for some customers in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. And we never sell on appreciation. We try to stay away from appreciation, but a lot of those properties have doubled in value, now, and people look back on this portfolio, and yes, they become millionaires with, not a lot of work, really
Yeah.
just making smart decisions. So, we try not to be flashy. Scott and I both, Scott's my business partner here. Neither of us are flashy guys. We try to take a really conservative approach at building financial security and generational wealth through real estate.
No, I love that. I love what you said about just it's a marathon rather than a sprint. Definitely see that with you guys. And I've came around to that. I used to be the sprinter and just love the sprints, but the more that I've just been in this business, I appreciate just the marathon, the interest that I get, the slow growth, and even what's going on now. Some of my friends are into the NFT, the cryptocurrency, all of the shiny stuff and I've even I started asking questions about it, and I even opened up an account to one of these cryptocurrency things. But then I took a step back and I was like, I know my personality, and I just think that's dangerous for me to even, it's almost like going to the blackjack table for me. It's like, it's just a dangerous position for me to be in. So I was like, I'm going to stay in my lane and just slow growth this thing. So I appreciate
I
that.
don't get a lot of that stuff. I don't understand a lot of
Yeah.
it. I know there's people that have made crazy money in doing some of the crypto, and now this metaverse thing and it's just not who I am. Like I said, I'm a bit of a redneck, and we've talked about it on my podcast about this metaverse, and
I just see you and
weird.
your partner having the goggles on and you're partying at Snoop Dogg's house in the metaverse. I don't know.
And we talked about that on the show. Like, someone paid $400,000, I guess, for a spot next to Snoop Dogg in the metaverse, and I'm just like, I mean, if that's what the world is going to be in 10 years, then, I told my wife the other day, we're going to have to find like some land out in the middle of nowhere and live off of it, because I don't know. That's just, I believe that we were put on this earth to interact with people, face to face. And I don't know. It's just a weird world to me. And maybe I'm just an old fuddy-duddy. And if I am an old fuddy-duddy, then that's fine. I'll be an old fuddy-duddy. But, we take a very conservative approach to it. And, it is amazing, what 20 years of kind of keeping that approach has been able to do for us as a business.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. Thanks for just kind of talking about that. Just again, guys, listen in, just go with the marathon. I think that's just really, really great advice. I've also noticed you have a podcast out there, the Homeboys podcast that you guys are putting on, which is awesome. I watched a couple of the episodes and you guys have fun with it. You have some acting skills. I don't know if you took some classes with some of that, but
I don't know about that.
A lot of fun. But you guys are doing the Homeboys podcast, but I wanted to just talk about that. So you're entering into this new season, right? And you're doing some new things. You're drumming for the worship band at your church, which is really cool. You're doing a podcast. And I think that a lot of guys during this season, they lose curiosity. They stop doing just something new. Maybe they're afraid of how they're going to look. And you've kind of taken a different approach to that. And maybe talk about that. So what's some of this curiosity, this new stuff, and I guess why during this season of your life?
Well, the whole podcasting thing was mainly, we wanted a place to be able to talk about a lot of the bad advice that people are getting out there. And I talked about it just a little bit ago. I don't agree with the whole flash, that some people, that seems like there's this new way of thinking of leveraging everything to the hilt, and taking the quick buck, and driving the crazy cars and all that. But we use the podcast as a way to kind of tell people that we don't feel that's the way. So, but it's also an outlet for us. And we also realized how difficult it actually is because we started doing it. And Scott and I are both relatively personable people, I think. We've had a lot of experience speaking at different real estate events, and like, oh, well, let's do this podcast. It's going to be easy. And like we walk out of the podcast room like, what was that? That was terrible.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a bumpy landing to kind of hit our stride with the podcast, which I think is kind of like, coming out of your comfort zone and doing things that are challenging or uncomfortable for you. I read a book through a church group once called it's Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, I think is the name of it. And it talks about, doing things that are uncomfortable and how freeing, it can be. And, now we've hit our stride a little bit with the homeboys, and we're enjoying it and it's fun. And, we, get some comments back and people say, oh, I saw that was funny, or that was cool. It's been fun to be part of that. But like at church, that I grew up playing drums, and I was a drummer through college for the athletic bands at Indiana University. And our church was needing musicians, and the worship leader asked if I was interested. I'm like, well, it's been 20 years since I've played drums, and the last time was in a smoky bar in Bloomington.
The Bluebird.
Yeah, Bluebird.
I used to live in Bloomington too for a little bit.
Spent a lot of time at the Bluebird, way too much time at the Bluebird. But anyhow, I agreed. I went in and auditioned, and then come to find out that like everything has changed so much. Like now you have these earpieces in, and there's this constant clicking, and there's these voices telling you that it's the intro or pan out or do all of these things. And like it was an exceptionally bumpy landing. Like I walked out of that drum cage for the first time I played and felt like an inch tall because it was awful. Like it was terrible. And I looked at the worship leader. I'm like, man, I knew those songs inside and out in my basement of my home.
Yeah.
And just came out here and bombed.
Yeah.
But it's another thing that, it made me exceptionally uncomfortable. And then the next few times I was so nervous. It wasn't even fun. But now I have gotten used to that. And really, in that experience, I had to learn myself that me drumming at church was not about me and about me playing well. It was about serving the Lord. And once I kind of came to that conclusion that, hey, this is not about you going up here and being at a rock concert. This is about, you serving the Lord. Everything started coming together. And it's been much more enjoyable. So, it's, I think it's very freeing, for men to do things that are uncomfortable and to see it through. And I know it's helped me a bunch with my own personal walk and with the Lord. But I'm like everybody else. It's still a struggle, day to day. But it's been both of those items in my life have been really cool. And like with the podcast, it's a neat outlet. We're going to be recording here later this afternoon. I always just feel better like walking out of the room than I did whenever I was walking in. I don't know, there's something about it. So I would encourage people to try new things that do make you uncomfortable, because you'd be surprised at the end. It may be something you really enjoy.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. And if you're listening out there, I would just see what were you curious about as a kid? Maybe something that you haven't done yet. So for me, a couple of probably legacy pieces is I've always wanted to play the guitar. So I got a guitar for Christmas and I've been practicing, and it is very just awkward, very awkward. And I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I get a little bit better each day. So that's like one thing I'm really curious about that I've always wanted to do. By the time I die, I was like, I would really like to just not go crazy, but just play a worship song around the fire with my kids. Like that's my goal. And I just started writing a book, which again, I'm a C- English student. And it's been very awkward and very challenging, probably one of the most challenging things I've done. But I'm just moving forward because I think God, I'm trying to just, lay out his message. And it's just a couple of examples. So I guess the audience out there, if you've been curious about something, I encourage you guys, just try it, and look stupid, look like an idiot, and do a little bit each day, be consistent with it. So, Clint, it's been awesome having you on. There's a couple last questions just kind of want to wrap the show up here with. We've been kind of going deep on this legacy, but a quote that I looked up from Peter Stropel says that legacy is not leaving something for people, it's leaving something in people. So you kind of talk about that with your family, but talk to us about that a little bit. So again, it's not really leaving something for people, but it's leaving something in people. So with Clint, with your life, with you're leading your business, leading your family, and leading now church and groups of people, right? So like, what do you want to leave in people?
Well, that's a constant battle, and that's always, you always have so much going on. We've really tried to scale back what we're doing here at work, because we have the opportunity at work to touch a lot of people, and quite frankly, I've done a D- job at that for a very long time. But 1 Corinthians 16:14, all that you do in love, is something that's at the core of what we talk about here, and we're actually getting that printed up on our wall as you come in. We've got an office in Anderson now. We're just north of Indianapolis, that we're going to put it on the wall as well. Is that just, you never know what people are struggling with. Myself included in that, and just everything, all of your interactions that you have at work, whether it's talking about work or just water cooler talk, or if it's someone that you meet at the grocery store, that if keeping that verse at the core of what I want to be kind of helps me to portray into people what I would like to put into people. So, I try to remind myself I do a terrible job at it. Sometimes, I have my own battles. Anger is something that I struggle with. Every day. We had a situation at work a few weeks ago that I look back on, and just I should go stand in the corner for a day. So like I'm not without fail. I fail often, but I do love people. At the core of who I am, I love everybody, and I like to leave people with that. And I try to take that verse into my home, as well, because if my kids aren't having a good day, or my wife's not having a good day, showing them the grace that we're given, by our Lord and Savior, is so important to take into your home, because we all need grace, just like I needed grace a couple of weeks ago when I acted like a jerk. So that I guess that's the long-winded version, but I keep 1 Corinthians 16:14 as close to my heart as possible. And it's good being on your podcast, because what, it brings it back into the front of my mind. Just being on this podcast, I want to walk out of this door and make someone's day better.
Yeah. No, exactly. I love that, Clint. Well, man, it's been awesome seeing you. Thank you so much for just kind of opening up, being a little bit vulnerable, talking about legacy on this podcast. Wish you and your company, guys, go check out Zuluscape and Realty Wealth Advisors, Clint's company, if you're interested in building marathon wealth. That's what I'm going to call it. So
I like
thanks.
that.
Thanks again, Clint. God bless you, brother.
Thank you so much, Brett. You as well. Blessings to you and your family.
Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.